There's a high likelihood this video is going to be way longer than what you're going to want to watch, but I'm going to get into it anyways. So this is what we got going on. I decided that after a year of having this supercharger for my truck that I'm finally going to install it, because I'm going to be out of town next week, so I can't tune this. I can tune this, but this fella on the truck uses HP tuners. That's nothing I'm familiar with, and I'm not even going to bother with it, because I want this thing, when it's all said and done, it'll be, you know, emissions compliant, because I still got to take the truck through emissions. But it's just nothing I want to get into. I don't need to learn how to tune a truck with software I don't use. This is just a daily driver. It's going to be a fun little kit. I don't need to occupy my brain power with how to tune this. I understand how it works, but I don't need to learn a new software. I'm busy enough with that thing. So this is just going to be a fun project. So it's a Torque Storm supercharger. And if you've never heard of them, they're out of Michigan. American-made stuff. And the kit was very reasonably priced. What I have here, this doesn't look like much now, because I already kind of started mocking all this stuff up earlier this week. So I've been working on this every night this week, making things fit, and I had to change a bunch of stuff on the truck and adapt some stuff. But long story short, this has already been on the truck. I took this off because, as you can see, never mind the air dam that I blew off on the last snow pile in the town within 50 fucking miles. But I got a new air dam on the way. But I'm draining the cooling system because while I was working on everything, I realized I had a water pump leaking. So I'm actually doing a water pump on it today, and then I'll go back and finish putting all the supercharger stuff on. And this thing's just filthy from winter grime. Normally this thing looks like, you know, not, I won't say showroom clean, but I keep this thing pretty clean. Like, I detail it when I clean the truck. So there's not a lot of buildup. It's just grimy right now. But as you can see, like I said, I've been mocking stuff up already. You can see down there, I already have the blower pulley on the crank, and I already have the first bracket bolted on the motor. That's where the EGR valve would normally mount on this truck. So you have to do an EGR delete, which again, it's getting past what I know how to do with tuning these things. So when they get it tuned, they'll do that. The EPA is watching my video, sorry, but it'll probably still run better than when this thing came from the factory. So behind that plate, there's an O-ring on the back side that caps off where the EGR valve went. So that's basically the delete plate. That's the foundation of all the supercharger brackets. And then the EGR, there's a tube that ran up over this valve cover, then into the back side of the plenum. Basically what I did was, where it goes into the plenum, I cut it off about an inch out. I crimped it shut and then TIG welded it closed. So I basically had an EGR delete plug that I just kind of made. Doesn't look fancy, but it'll work. And the first thing I did on this project, and I've just been kind of putting it off, was put that pulley on. Because what you have to do is Torque Storm actually gives you a cool little fixture, little, no, I don't want to say fixture, kind of a fixture, tool that you bolt into the end of the crank. It's got two holes in it. You drill in on the seam, the line of where the balancer and the crank snout come together. And then you put two hardened pins in there. So you basically are pinning the balancer to the crank, and then the pins extend out and they go into a mandrel that pulley is bolted to. So the crank pulley balancer combo and the supercharger pulley and the mandrel are all keyed to the crank. So none of that stuff can slip. And that stuff is all, you know, Loctited on and good to go. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to get this water pump done, start putting stuff together. You can see I already got the fan and the fan shroud and everything are already off. If you've never worked on a ram like this, they're just, generally speaking, very easy to work on. It took me legit 5 minutes to get the fan and the fan shroud and stuff off to get full access to the front of the motor. And I don't know if anybody watching this even has a ram like this, but maybe you will, because I'll try to, you know, I'll tag it or title it something so ram guys can get a kick out of it. But this pulley for the water pump has 4 holes in it, and when you go to unthread the fan, it's slipping my mind right now. But anyway, Fan clutch. It was a fan clutch. I couldn't think of the name. Fan clutch. The drive for the fan. When you go to unthread that off there, you got to hold this pulley, then unthread that. You can make a tool, and it's super easy. I'm going to show you mine. I know it's upside down, but this is all it is. It's a piece of long stock, bar stock aluminum with 2 bolts in it. All you got to do is go down here, and you stick them bolts in that pulley, and then you can still see I got they're offset obviously to one side, so they clear the nut for the fan, and then you go in there with a wrench and you break the fan loose. It's as easy as that. This didn't cost me anything, so some scrap stuff. So the other thing that probably caught your eye is the cone filter on the factory air tube piece that goes to the plenum or air box. That's actually going to go on the back side of the supercharger, because the factory air box for the air filter is over here, and I removed all of that because I'm not going to need it for the supercharger. So I had all this area over here to basically make, or mount I should say, a new coolant. I got a coolant overflow tank that mounts to the radiator shroud, and then that's my washer fluid tank that was 20 bucks off Amazon, because on a Dodge the factory overflow tanks and overflow tank and washer tank mount on the back side of the radiator shroud, and they actually get in the way of the drive setup for the blower. I don't know if when they designed this kit, if they used a little bit earlier 3rd gen Dodge, because that uses a different style tank and washer tank and coolant overflow, that would clear. Mine's an 07, so it's like a later 3rd gen. So whatever, I just couldn't quite make it work. There was no space to get the belt on, and the washer side of the tank was pushed against the idler pulley. Not a big deal, because I had all that space over there, and for 20 bucks for that, and it was like 15 bucks for a little overflow tank that I got. That stuff is all nice and tidy and out of the way. And I even put the factory low washer fluid sensor back in that tank, so everything works as it should. But this is how I've been driving it, because I had to mock all this stuff up and still be able to drive the truck. So now I'm going to start getting everything finished up, and I got today and tomorrow to get this all done. It's 40 and raining out today, so doing what I can. But this thing gets dropped off Monday to get tuned, so I have to make sure everything that I'm building for this kit is functional, will work, and isn't going to give the guys that are going to work on it a headache. So I've already built, you can't see it now, it's in the house, I'll show you that, but I got the charge tube that I built. It took a couple nights to make that. That's why I actually bought the TIG welder that's over there. This was the first project I wanted to do at my house with my own TIG welder, instead of having to run around to work and do all that stuff. But the charge tube is built. The intake air temp sensor mount that I fabbed up is all welded to the charge tube. And I got a bracket that will actually hold, once it's in a coupler on the throttle body, the silicone coupler, just so that doesn't blow off the throttle body, because there's no ring on the throttle body to clamp the silicone coupler to keep it from pulling off. It's just a smooth flange. So I made a bracket that'll, once that's all clamped together, the charge tube itself will have a strap that's bolted to the intake itself, so it'll still be able to move but not blow off. The strap will hold it so it can't slip off that non-ribbed area for the clamp. So I've been obviously working away doing little stuff, so I'm a little bit ahead of the game. But for now, I'm going to get the water pump done, and then I'm not going to film a bunch of that because it's just going to be a mess basically. But once the water pump is done and I get back to putting supercharger stuff on, then I'll come back and show you guys what's going on. So that'll be the fun part. Update. Full mess, engaged. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up that the gasket for the water pump is actually an O-ring. So I'm just gonna take my little buff pad and just doctor that up a little bit so it's a little bit cleaner, seal that up. But I probably had more opportunities to fix this on nicer days, because as I pulled the pump off, I gave it a little spin. You can hear that. Sounds like a duck call. When I would start this thing up some mornings, I could hear a noise. I honestly thought I had an idler or a tensioner going bad. Then I caught a whiff of antifreeze the other morning and noticed this pump was leaking. It's not even out of a weep hole. There's like a little freeze plug pushed in there. That's where it was leaking. But I don't know, maybe it just built pressure and pushed it out or something. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. But as I was pulling bolts out of that, I was sticking them in that just to keep track of what went where. But now, so I can get that ready to put on, I'll stick all them bolts back on that one and use that as the holder now. So when I go to bolt this on, I can just grab them out of there, whatever, bolt it on. So we'll keep going with this supercharger stuff coming soon. So now, before one of you guys at home blowing farts in your couch cushion says something about using one of these to clean up a gasket surface, I know you don't want to remove material. You're just removing the crap that's built up on there, the little crusty scaly bits, so that it's smooth again. So, well aware. Fart blower. Here's another thing I might take some flack for, but every time I do something on this thing, bolts, whatnot, all get cleaned up. And if it's a service item that I'm going to have to possibly redo at some point in its life, I anti-seize it. If it's a part that can come flinging off going down the freeway and kill a family of 4 on their way to Wally World, then I Loctite it. But for something like this, I'll give this thing a little schmutzing of Tin Man in a can here. And if I have any other issues down the road, I know this will come back apart and my stuff won't be all rusted and snap off on me. So, yay or nay, whatever, I use it. I work in sort of a heavy vehicle industry, and anti-seize is a lifesaver sometimes for the stuff that we have to maintain. So I use it on my own stuff. So water pump is done. So I went and cleaned up some stuff a little bit, but yeah, it's on there. I just started adding coolant. But what I'm going to do now is go in the house and make some lunch because I'm hungry and I'm feeling Italian today. So I'm going to get ready to eat some lunch. Bing. But this is the charge tube I built. And I didn't really do any video on this because I've been on kind of a time crunch to get this whole kit done and fit and checked to make sure I got no issues before I dropped the truck off. But, you know, obviously I welded it all together. I made the mount for the adapter, I guess you could say, for the intake air temp sensor for blow off valve, and then there's a little tab there that'll fasten to the intake plenum itself to keep it from popping off out of the boot. But I'm gonna bake that. First I'm gonna eat, and then I'm gonna bake that in the oven. And this is it's a VHT wrinkle finish, so it looks like it's got a little bit of shine to it right now, but when I get done baking it, it'll be dull, and it'll kind of look more like a factory type part if, you know, factory included the supercharger. But anyway, yeah, so this is going to get cooked, and then all the supercharger mock-up is going to come together, and we'll see how it looks. So we just got done eating lunch. Had some Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs. So told you I was going to have some Italian. That's authentic Italian too, by the way. But got the charge tube that I showed you in the house. I put that in the oven, and that's baking now, 200 degrees for like an hour. So in that hour, I should be able to get everything else mocked up on the truck behind me. And then, full disclosure, this Torque Storm kit it's called the tuner kit. So basically you'll get the brackets to put a head unit on, your application, but it's up to you to come up with, fuel system upgrades, obviously intercooler or non-intercooler charge tube type plumbing. And like what I had to figure out was how I was going to do an intake air temp sensor. So I figured that out to use the OEM one, just so parts are just easy. And then, you got to mount the blow off valve and just kind of, you're basically on your own. But it's also half the price of some of the other kits. So this kit is a 7 PSI kit. I can put a different pulley on it to go more, but I'm not gonna with this one. Actually, I was hoping I could get like, 5 pounds. So I might put a, if I just said bigger, I meant smaller. I wish I had a bigger pulley to put on it because I'd like to be around like 5 pounds. Really, I'm just doing this to have fun. It's a project, but yeah, this kit, $3 grand. I think it's totally well worth it for American-made parts, So it only took me a year to get around to doing this because right after I bought this, started doing kind of the house thing. So it's been sitting for a while. But now, this is the good stuff. Now we'll get to mount some shit. So stay tuned. So hopefully you can see what I'm working with here. But down here, this is the first bracket that goes on for the whole head unit mounting assembly. So this, like I said, that's the EGR block off. So now I'll get the intermediate plate and then the actual head plate. So we'll start bolting stuff together. And I'm going to do a little Loctiting those bolts in. Just blue Loctite, so I will be able to service it if I got to take anything off. But hopefully nothing comes loose and goes sailing down the freeway and kills a family of 4 on their way to Wally World. So we'll get going on mounting this stuff up. So this is the intermediate plate now. Let's do a little dab. You watched me just struggle with figuring out where the bracket goes because I was trying to line up a hole that didn't make sense and I didn't see the one it was supposed to go into, but we got it. Couldn't figure out why the hoses were in the way when they weren't in the way the last time it was on. There we go. Accidentally knocked my coolant overflow out of the way. Okay, so we're getting out of the nuts and bolts of it now. So all the bracketry is on, the head unit's on, I put the belt on. Now I can go ahead, I'll put the fan and the radiator shroud back on. Then that kind of buttons up everything here. Then what I'll do is I'll get the air box, plenum, whatever, off. Put the air filter on the back of the supercharger, untape the outlet, and I'll get ready to put the charge tube on because that should be getting close to done baking inside. And then I already went and I had sourced, this is the map sensor here. I already sourced a SRT 8.1, which oddly enough is the same design, and it has a little extra ear on the side that go into that hole. It's like almost like this intake was made to have the other sensor. So this is just a, you know, a factory, whatever, 1 bar. The one I'm putting in is a 3 bar, way more than I'll need, but it'll still at least be able to read, you know, it'll be on the scale anyways of what I'm going to be doing for boost. It might run with that. I don't know if it'll go into boost with that, but we're going to try to get it running at least. And then air intake temp, that'll go into the charge tube when that's on here. But yeah, we're getting down to wrapping it up, and then I'll need to plumb 1 vacuum line. The blow-off valve actually is kind of down, you know, under, would be, you know, this area, and then I gotta tap into a vacuum line. I'll probably come off the brake booster or something, so that should be that easy. So now we'll get going on the last little bits. So I did a few little things quick. One, I found my vacuum source. My booster check valve has an extra nipple coming off of it, so I'm going to plumb the blow-off valve too. So this is routed over to here. That'll go almost exactly where it needs to go. Then what else I got going on here? I put the couplers on, charge tube I'm going to go grab. So I go from there, whoop, to there, whoop. And then as you can see, the air filter isn't in like an ideal location. It's right above the exhaust manifolds, and the AC line is kind of pushing against it. I don't really like that. So I ordered some more aluminum tubing and some couplers, and just, I like having miscellaneous stuff on hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little air inlet, and I'm undecided if I want to run, just come off the back of the supercharger and then just tuck the air filter back in this corner. Probably going to be not the best spot, just I'm going to guess probably collects heat back in this area. Or I might at some point come 180 off the back of the supercharger, come forward and stick the air filter down in here. So kind of up in the air, but I'll maybe do that tomorrow. For now, we're just going to get the last few things buttoned up and see if we can get her fired up. Ooh, she looks good. Time to pull her out. I'm gonna have to say, all those late nights this week just paid off. That fit perfect. All I gotta do is, I got the couplers on. All I gotta do is put the blow-off valve on there, and then I gotta make back here. I gotta connect up my, you know, my securing strap from here to, there's a threaded insert back there. So I'll just run a bar across there. That way, there's no bead rolled onto the throttle body, so this is just smooth. So I mean, it's tight, and I'm not running a ton of boost, so it'll probably be fine. But if this coupler decides to ever pop off of there, at least I'll have a little backup to just catch it. So I'll get making that. So there's the retaining bracket I was talking about making. Added a couple holes just to give it some character, but I'll go ahead and I'll spray this now and bake it like I did with the charge tube, so that'll match. And then I'll go back and hit the holes with the countersink, so the ring on the holes will be aluminum and the rest of it will be black. But whipped it up real quick. Had to get a little bend, a kicker in there to get up over the throttle body. There's a little boss there for where the throttle blade is, but that'll work pretty slick. So I decided to take the vacuum line for the blow-off valve and slide some of this braided protective wrap over it, and then just heat shrink the ends. I think it'll look a little nicer under the hood than just a rubber hose with the size imprinted on it. So kind of blend in with the rest of the underhood plumbing a little better, I think. So not that I'm trying to make this look like a factory install, I just like things that look sort of clean. So add a little feature there. So I went to maybe like do a little test fitting in this area for the air filter setup, and I didn't even realize they sent me 3-inch tubing. That's 3.5-inch inlet. That's 3-inch, but the inlet is 3.5. So their filter is going to stay like that until I can get tubing ordered to build something different. But anyway, got the blow-off valve is on, got the vacuum line routed. What else? Kind of just double checking stuff. I got the blow-off valve is held on. It goes over this mount. There's a groove in that mount, and then these set screws tighten into that groove, and then you lock them down. So it's sealed with an O-ring, and then it's locked in so it can't pop off with those set screws in the groove. I got the air intake temp sensor plugged in. That turned out pretty freaking slick. Did all that last night. Couplers are all tight. Charge tube is pretty stout. Everything's kind of ready to go. This I got to redo yet. This was the replacement for the factory coolant overflow tank that wouldn't fit down in here because of the pulleys. What I'm going to do is get rid of the hose clamp, and I'm going to TIG weld that aluminum bracket to the tank itself. So it'll still be bolted on and removable, but the bracket will be TIGged to the tank, and that hose clamp just looks kind of cheesy, as does the orange hose that came with the kit. It was just all I had that was that size. So this eventually will be black hose. Yeah, just the little detail things I got to wrap up. I got to get washer fluid while I'm thinking of it. But I'm ready to try to fire this thing up and see if it'll just like start and idle or just do anything cool. It won't be obviously making much for boost at idle. So I'm hoping with the factory map sensor in there that this thing will at least be drivable to where I can, you know, without screaming and making boost, that I can maybe limp it around, because I got to drive it probably, I'm going to guess 3 miles is all the farther it has to go to get tuned. Otherwise, if I can't drive it just a little bit even with it the way it is, I'm going to have to pull the charge tube off, and I'll put the air filter setup back on just so I can, you know, drive it. But let's fire it up and see what happens here. I'll use the remote start so I can look for problems. You can hear the blow-off valve bypassing right now. That's good. I fired this thing up without the charge pipe on it once, just to test the belt to make sure it was going to run true. That sucker kicks out some air, so the fact that the pop-off is open at idle is a good thing. It lets me know that it's not trying to cram a shit ton of air down the throttle body, that's actually working. It's literally bypassing. You can feel it. You can feel the air coming out of the blow-off valve right now. So when I rev it up, that should close. Then when I let off the throttle, it should pop back open. But it appears to be idling and running. Sounds good too. So let's give her a few little revs and see what happens. It's doing everything normal still, so that's a good sign. We'll give her just a quick rev. You hear that blow-off valve close and pop open. See if I can hold my hand up there a little farther. So I might be able to get away with driving this thing a little bit. I'm actually going to back it up and down the driveway just a couple times and see how it comes off idle and everything. So yeah, it's not tuned, but it runs. That's the first goal. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty freaking excited about this. Everything that I've been working on all week and making little pieces and test fitting and trial and error and just making it so it was going to bolt on as a kit, as if I would have ordered it as a complete kit. It works. everything went together exactly how I thought it would in my head, and it works. Like, I just drove it up and down the driveway a couple times. I know it's not tuned and it ain't making, you know, it's only gonna make, they say 6 to 7 pounds max with this pulley setup. So I know me just running it up on the driveway and just swamping the throttle a couple times isn't a really good test, but it's a functional kit right now. It works. This has been a year in the making. You know, I don't know, I'm just pretty excited about this. Like, it sounds cool and it runs. That's the kicker. Is I was afraid I was going to get this all said and done and I was going to have a problem with something. I was going to be missing something or something I couldn't make, but all in all, I couldn't be happier. And it, like, not to toot my own horn, but just how it all turned out. It looks freaking amazing. And this truck has 317,000 miles on it right now. That motor's got 75,000 on it. And I pretty much just towed my enclosed motorcycle trailer with it. I don't drive it like a hot rod. This literally, like, when I called to make the appointment to get it tuned, I told the guys this is not a max horsepower effort. If this was a cardboard cutout of a supercharger that just made whistle noises, I would be happy with it. But the fact that it's a complete functional kit and the Torque Storm reputation for reliability, I think I'm going to get a lot of years of fun out of this thing. And just, I cruise it. That's all it is. This is just meant to be cruised and have fun, sound cool, maybe get some thumbs up and show some people that you can make some cool shit in your garage. So I think, yeah, other than getting it tuned, I think that's where I'm gonna end this video here. So hope you dug that. Like I said, I wish I would have filmed a little more of the fabrication side of things when I was doing the charge tube and all that fit and finish on that, but trying to do it in the evenings after work, and it's been cold and rainy all week, so I've been basically working with the truck outside, me inside, the garage door closed, and it was just in and out, in and out, in and out, and it would have just been a pain in the ass to have the camera with for all that. So I could have filmed some welding and stuff inside, I suppose, but I'm sure there'll be more fabrication going on. I'm not running an intercooler on this setup. I just don't feel that I'll need it. The truck won't be going, 150 miles an hour for any extended duration to justify the cooling of an air-to-air intercooler. So we're just going to keep it super simple setup. Maybe down the road I'm going to eat my words and I'll fab up an intercooler setup just because I like making shit and tinkering. So that would be the only reason I would do it. Priority one though right now is to get the air filter moved away from the top side of that exhaust manifold and make a little, I'll probably use Kydex plastic or something. I'll make a little air box for the filter to sit in. So almost like if you were to buy one of those aftermarket air intakes for a truck, they come with that little black box and kind of isolate the air filter where it gets fresh air and no engine bay heat. So that might be the next project I take on, but for now I got a supercharged Dodge Ram. How cool is that? Thanks for watching. Hope you dug this.